the heart of a merciless winter storm, a lone rancher stumbles upon a frozen Mustang, barely clinging to life. What happens next will challenge everything he thought he knew about survival trust and the unbreakable bond between man and beast. In the heart of Wyoming's rugged wilderness, winter had settled with a merciless grip. The mountains stood shrouded in a heavy veil of snow and ice, the air brittle with cold that pierced through even the thickest layers of clothing. A fierce storm raged, the wind howling like a wild animal, desperate to claim dominion over the land. Visibility was nearly non-existent, as swirling snow obscured every familiar landmark, turning the world into a vast, silent expanse of white. Jake, a weathered rancher, hardened by years spent battling the elements, pressed onward through this frozen tempest. He moved cautiously, each step crunching against the frozen ground beneath layers of snow. His breath came in sharp bursts, misting in the cold air, while his eyes, dark and steady, scanned the blinding whiteness for any sign of life or shelter. Though the storm was nothing new to him, the weight of solitude pressed heavily on his spirit today. The biting cold gnawed at his resolve, yet a deeper instinct drove him forward, urging him to keep searching despite the darkness of the storm. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye, a shadow faint and fragile against the swirling snow. Drawing nearer, Jake's heart tightened with concern. There, partially buried in the snow, lay a Mustang, wild and majestic, even in its dire state. The horse's coat, once glossy and full of life, was now matted with frost and dirt. Deep wounds marred its flanks, revealing the cruel toll of its struggle against nature. Its ribs protruded sharply beneath the thin skin, a testament to days spent fighting hunger and cold. Yet what struck Jake most was the horse's eyes, dark pools filled with pain, fear, and a desperate longing for help. The Mustang's gaze locked onto Jake's with an intensity that transcended words. It let out a faint whinny, fragile yet filled with raw emotion, a silent plea that seemed to cut through the roar of the storm itself. In that moment, Jake felt the weight of a connection, two souls, man and beast, united by the brutal challenge of survival. Though strangers until now, they were bound by a shared will to endure against overwhelming odds. Jake's thoughts raced. He recalled the lessons taught by his grandfather, old survival skills etched into his memory like sacred texts. Slowly, carefully, he knelt beside the Mustang, mindful not to startle it further. His gloved hand brushed the horse's frost-bitten neck, and for a brief moment, the Mustang did not shy away. Instead, it exhaled a ragged breath, a sign of trust born from mutual need. Around them, the wilderness was both hostile and hauntingly beautiful. The distant cry of wolves echoed faintly, a reminder of the raw forces at play. The storm's fury seemed to pause briefly, as if nature itself acknowledged the fragile alliance forming in the midst of chaos. Jake took stock of Shadow's injuries, deep lacerations, frostbite, exhaustion. Yet beneath the surface, he detected a spark of life, a fierce spirit refusing to yield. He knew time was precious. Leaving the Mustang to perish would weigh on his conscience. Yet the path ahead was treacherous, and aid was miles away. Every breath Jake drew felt laden with urgency. His mind grappled with the enormity of the situation. This was not just a rescue, it was a testament to resilience, a battle of wills against the relentless winter. As the wind whipped around them, Jake wrapped his scarf tighter and scanned the horizon for shelter. In the distance, a faint outline of an old hunting cabin appeared, barely visible through the storm's fury. A flicker of hope ignited within him. If he could reach that refuge, maybe, just maybe, he could save the Mustang. Gently, Jake began the painstaking process of lifting Shadow, steadying the horse with every ounce of strength he had. Each movement was slow and deliberate, a dance of survival performed on an unforgiving stage. The snow resisted their progress, deep and unyielding, threatening to swallow them whole with every step. But neither Jake nor Shadow faltered. Their bond, forged in this crucible of ice and despair, propelled them forward. The cold seeped into Jake's bones, but the warmth of purpose burned brighter. In his heart, he carried not only the hope of survival, but the echoes of a life shaped by perseverance and reverence for the land. Shadow, despite every injury and every moment of weakness, mirrored that determination. With eyes gleaming through the frost, the Mustang moved steadily toward the distant promise of safety. This was more than a tale of rescue. It was an unfolding story of connection and courage. In the midst of a merciless storm, two beings discovered the unyielding strength that comes from standing together. The frozen wilderness might rage around them, But Jake and Shadow had found something no tempest could destroy, a flicker of hope, a reason to keep fighting, and a bond that transcended the cold and the snow. As they pressed on into the storm's heart, Jake whispered a vow beneath his breath, a promise that neither would be left behind. And in that vow lay the unspoken truth of the wild's survival was never just about strength or endurance, but about compassion, trust, and the courage to face the darkest of nights together. The decision Jake made was one forged in the crucible of desperation and unwavering resolve. He could not leave Shadow behind, helpless in the heart of the storm, destined to succumb to the unforgiving cold. Despite the biting wind and the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him, Jake committed himself to a journey that was as much about hope as survival. The mountains around them loomed like silent sentinels, blanketed in white, indifferent to the fragile lives caught in their midst. Jake knew that the path ahead would test every fiber of his being. With limited supplies and the Mustang's weakened state, each step would be a battle against not only the elements, but the creeping despair that threatened to unravel his spirit. He rummaged through his pack with numb fingers, retrieving a coil of worn rope and a faded wool blanket, remnants of past expeditions. Carefully, he fashioned a harness around Shadow's trembling chest, its weakened body leaning heavily on Jake's steady support. As they ventured deeper into the storm, the cold became a living presence. It seeped through layers of clothing, stole warmth from their limbs, and clawed relentlessly at their resolve. The snow beneath their feet was treacherous, sometimes powdery and soft, other times hardened into ice that threatened to betray every step. Shadow's legs faltered, often each stumble a jarring reminder of how close the horse teetered on the edge of endurance. Yet within those deep, tired eyes, there burned a quiet fire, a refusal to surrender. Jake's mind drifted to memories from his youth, to his grandfather's stories, told beside crackling fires, tales of survival etched in the very fabric of their family history. He remembered the wisdom imparted in those moments: respect the land, listen to its rhythms, and never underestimate the power of will. These lessons, once abstract, now grounded him as he moved forward with a fierce determination to honor the legacy and save the creature who had come to embody it. Their journey was marked by fleeting moments of grace amid the harshness. The distant cry of a lone eagle, the shimmer of icicles catching the pale light, the silent beauty of a world cloaked in snow, these became beacons of hope, reminders that even in desolation, life endured. Jake found himself attuned to Shadow's subtle signals, a shift in posture, a gentle nudge, the softening of a whinny. These small acts of communication stitched their spirits closer, weaving a tapestry of trust and companionship against the backdrop of the storm. Yet the challenges were relentless. At times, the wind tore at Jake's face with such force that it seemed to carry the very essence of the wilderness's fury. His breaths came in ragged gasps, frost clinging to his eyelashes and beard. The cold numbed his hands, making every movement a battle between mind and body. Shadow's labored breathing echoed his own, a haunting duet of survival that filled the white silence around them. Jake's thoughts often turned inward during these long hours, questioning, fearing, but never yielding. He wrestled with the weight of responsibility, the fragile thread by which life hung. The mountain's vastness was both humbling and isolating. Every step forward was a defiance of the void threatening to engulf them. Yet amidst this solitude, the presence of Shadow was a living reminder that they were not alone in the struggle. At times, Jake spoke softly to the Mustang, words of encouragement born from the depths of his heart. These moments were not mere solace, but affirmations of their shared will to survive. "You're stronger than you know, Shadow," he murmured, voice barely carrying over the storm. "We'll make it through this, together." The horse's eyes met his with a flicker of recognition, a silent pledge renewed in the biting cold. The wilderness itself became a character in their saga, its moods shifting with the passing hours. Snowdrifts shifted like restless spirits. Shadows lengthened beneath heavy clouds, and the world seemed to pulse with a quiet intensity. Jake learned to read the signs: a sudden hush before a gust, the way the snow packed beneath their feet, the distant echo of a breaking branch. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle, a guide through the labyrinth of ice and storm. As night fell, the temperature dropped further, and the cold deepened its grip. Jake searched for shelter, but found none, only the vast openness of a mountain that neither yielded nor relented. The darkness pressed in, swallowing the landscape and turning the world into a canvas of stars and shadows. They paused briefly, Jake gathering strength, as shadow rested, their breaths mingling in the frozen air. Despite the pain etched into their bodies, a quiet resilience emerged. It was a testament to the indomitable spirit that had carried countless generations before them. Jake's resolve was no longer just a choice, it had become a force that propelled them onward, a beacon in the bleakness. He saw in Shadow's endurance a reflection of his own journey, a shared narrative of struggle and hope intertwined. The night deepened, and with it came a stillness that was both haunting and profound. Jake held Shadow close, offering warmth and reassurance as the storm continued its relentless assault. He knew the path ahead was uncertain, that the wilderness demanded sacrifice and courage. Yet in that moment, surrounded by the vast silence and the fragile pulse of life beside him, Jake found a measure of peace. Their journey through the frozen wilderness was far from over. The mountain had many more trials to offer, and the storm would not ease until it had tested every ounce of their strength. But with every step, every breath shared between man and Mustang, a story was being written, a story of endurance, trust, and the unwavering bond forged in the crucible of hardship. Jake's heart beat with the quiet certainty that no matter how harsh the winter, no matter how fierce the storm, there was a power greater than the cold, a power found in connection and compassion, and in the relentless pursuit of survival. Together they would face the mountain's wrath, guided by a hope that burned brighter than the fiercest storm. In the midst of the relentless storm, when the cold had seeped into every bone, and hope seemed a distant ember flickering against the howling wind, Jake and Shadow's arduous journey took an unexpected turn. Through the swirling white, a figure emerged, fragile and determined, a woman named Emily. Her presence was a fragile lifeline in the vast wilderness, a human thread weaving into the tapestry of survival that Jake and Shadow had been stitching alone. Emily was unlike Jake in many ways. Where he was shaped by years of solitary struggle on the ranch, toughened by nature's unyielding demands, she carried the imprint of a world less familiar with such raw hardship. Her eyes, wide and filled with both fear and fierce resolve, spoke of a recent harrowing battle against the storm itself. Yet despite their differing backgrounds, the common ground they found in the face of adversity was undeniable. As the storm's fury whipped around them, Jake instinctively moved to shield Shadow, guiding the weary Mustang toward the fragile safety of the small clearing where Emily stood. The trio, now bound by circumstance, instinct, and the will to survive, faced the elements together. In those moments, the loneliness that had once wrapped around Jake like the bitter cold began to thaw, replaced by a fragile hope kindled through human connection. The merging of their strengths was immediate and profound. Jake's intimate knowledge of the wilderness, the subtle signs of changing weather, the ways to navigate through treacherous terrain, blended seamlessly with Emily's calm, measured approach, and the medical knowledge she carried from a background far removed from these mountains. Where Jake offered experience and rugged endurance, Emily brought gentleness and care, creating a balance essential for survival in such merciless conditions. Together they tended to Shadow with a newfound tenderness, a fusion of expertise and compassion. Emily's hands, though unfamiliar with the rawness of ranch life, moved with quiet assurance over the horse's battered body, cleaning wounds and applying makeshift bandages from the limited supplies she carried. Jake watched as Shadow's breathing steadied slightly, his own heart swelling with gratitude for this unexpected aid. As the storm raged on, their dynamic evolved beyond mere survival tactics. Around the flickering light of a hastily built fire, the trio found moments of fragile reprieve. The stark wilderness, once an adversary, transformed into a backdrop for shared stories, silent understanding, and the delicate weaving of trust. Jake spoke softly of the mountains, the land that had shaped him, and the ancestors whose footsteps he followed. Emily shared glimpses of her life far from the wild, her struggles, and the determination that had brought her here. In these exchanges, Jake recognized a mirror of his own vulnerabilities, the hidden fractures beneath his weathered exterior. Emily, too, found strength in Jake's resilience and the primal connection he maintained with the natural world. Shadow, sensing this shifting tide, seemed to respond, its once dim eyes now flickering with a renewed spirit, as if buoyed by the human bonds forming around it. The storm, though unyielding, began to recede in their minds, replaced by the warmth of companionship. The harsh wind that had once driven them apart now whispered through the trees as a reminder of the endurance woven through every living thing. In the quiet moments between gusts, the shared humanity of Jake, Emily, and Shadow became the truest shelter, a fortress against the encroaching cold. Yet beneath the fragile peace challenges lingered. Each step forward was still a test of will. Shadows of doubt crept into their thoughts, questions about the path ahead, fears of failure, and the overwhelming weight of exhaustion. Emily's city-bred instincts occasionally clashed with Jake's raw survivalism, their differing approaches sparking tension that was as natural as it was necessary. But these moments of friction only served to deepen their understanding of one another, forging a bond tempered in adversity. Shadow's presence was the thread that held them together. The horse's steady, if labored steps echoed the perseverance in Jake and Emily's hearts. In its struggle to rise and move forward, they saw their own battles reflected, silent, stubborn, yet unyielding. The Mustang had become more than an animal in need of care. It was a symbol of resilience, a living testament to the power of hope amid despair. Together they navigated the treacherous landscape, the snow-cloaked mountains, bearing witness to their collective will. The wilderness tested them relentlessly, from hidden crevices to icy slopes. Each obstacle met with cautious determination and mutual support. Jake's steady hand guided Emily through the unfamiliar terrain, while she offered comfort and aid when his strength waned. As the hours passed, the storm's rage gave way to fleeting moments of calm. Beneath a star-strewn sky, the three found brief sanctuary, their breaths mingling in the cold night air. Around the flickering firelight, the stories and silences intertwined, weaving a narrative not just of survival, but of transformation. They were no longer merely man, woman, and horse-battling nature. They were a triad of souls intertwined by shared struggle and the quiet power of trust. In those moments, Jake felt a shift deep within, a rekindling of hope and a new understanding of strength. It was not just the physical endurance that mattered, but the courage to lean on others, to accept help and give it in return. Emily, too, embraced a newfound resilience, born from the wild's harsh lessons and the steadfastness of those beside her. Shadow, standing tall despite its wounds, embodied the spirit that had brought them this far, the fierce will to live that refused to be extinguished. The Mustang's journey was a silent anthem, a heartbeat echoing through the snow-covered valleys and into the hearts of those who bore witness. Their journey together was far from over, but the unexpected alliance had become a beacon against the storm's darkness. In the vast wilderness, amidst the swirling snow and biting cold, Jake, Emily, and Shadow found a profound truth: that hope, compassion, and shared strength could illuminate even the bleakest paths. And as they faced the challenges yet to come, it was this truth that would carry them forward hand in hand, step by step, toward the promise of survival and renewal. The storm had been a relentless adversary, battering Jake, Emily, and Shadow with its icy fury. Yet despite the fatigue etched deeply into their bodies and the gnawing uncertainty that accompanied each step, they pressed onward. The mountain's cold embrace was unyielding, but so too was the fire burning within them, the will to survive, to reach safety, and to forge a new beginning from the ruins of hardship. As the wind tore through the bare trees and snow swirled like restless spirits, the small silhouette of a cabin appeared through the veil of white. It was a beacon, faint yet unmistakable, a promise of warmth and refuge after days of exposure and struggle. Jake's heart pounded, not only with exhaustion, but with a cautious hope. He urged Shadow forward, his voice barely audible over the storm's roar. "Almost there, Shadow. Hold on, just a little longer." Each step toward the cabin was a monumental effort. Shadow's legs trembled, weakness threatening to claim the weary Mustang at any moment. Jake moved with steady resolve, supporting the horse, his own strength nearly spent, but fueled by an unbreakable bond forged in the depths of adversity. Emily, limping but resolute, followed closely, her presence a comforting anchor in the swirling chaos. As they reached the cabin's weathered door, Jake's breath caught in his throat. With a desperate push fueled by the last reserves of his strength, he forced the door open against the cold's fierce grip. Warmth flooded the small space, a stark contrast to the biting chill outside. The cabin, humble yet sturdy, was alive with soft light and quiet sounds that spoke of life sustained through harsh seasons. An older woman appeared, her eyes sharp but kind, revealing a lifetime of experience etched into the lines of her weathered face. Without hesitation, she moved to assist, her practiced hands swiftly checking the pulse of the man Emily had mentioned, whose strength had waned dangerously in the storm. Her voice, calm and steady, offered reassurance that cut through the tension like a balm. Jake turned his attention to Shadow, who stood shivering by the doorway, every breath a struggle. The horse's coat was coated with frost and sweat, its body trembling, but still standing, a testament to resilience beyond measure. Jake knelt beside the Mustang, his fingers brushing gently along its neck. "You made it," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "We made it." Inside the cabin, the atmosphere was thick with a mixture of relief and lingering fear. The older woman worked quickly, wrapping blankets around the man and tending to Shadow with a care born from years of knowing the fragile line between life and death in this wilderness. Jake felt the weight of exhaustion like never before, but beneath it lay a profound sense of gratitude, a quiet celebration of the life they had fought so fiercely to preserve. In the days that followed, the cabin became a sanctuary, not only from the storm, but from the trials that had tested them all. The wounds they bore, both seen and unseen, began to heal in the warmth of human kindness and the quiet strength of shared purpose. Jake and Emily found themselves drawn closer, their partnership forged not just by circumstance, but by a deepening respect and affection, born of hardship endured together. Shadow, too, responded to the sanctuary's embrace. Slowly regaining strength, the Mustang's spirit brightened, the fierce gleam in its eyes returning as it moved with renewed purpose. The horse had become more than a survivor. It was a symbol of hope, a living reminder of the power of resilience and the bonds that transcend the harshest winters. Inspired by their ordeal, Jake and Emily began to envision a future that honored the lessons etched into their souls by the storm. Together, they dreamed of a sanctuary, a place where animals like Shadow and people like themselves could find refuge and healing. It would be a testament to the endurance of life, a beacon of compassion and strength in a world that often demanded more than it gave. Their story, once one of struggle against the merciless elements, had transformed into a narrative of triumph and renewal. The mountain had tested them, pushing them to their limits and beyond, but it had not broken them. Instead, it had revealed the depth of their courage and the power of connection, the threads that weave lives together in the face of adversity. As the storm finally began to retreat, giving way to the quiet promise of dawn, Jake stood beside Shadow, gazing out at the horizon. The world was still vast and wild, full of challenges yet to come, but within that expanse lay endless possibility. He felt the steady pulse of the Mustang beneath his hand, a rhythm that echoed the steadfast beat of his own heart. In that moment, Jake understood what their journey had truly been about, not merely survival, but transformation. It was about the courage to face the unknown, the compassion to carry one another through darkness, and the hope that even in the coldest winters, new beginnings await. Together, Jake, Emily, and Shadow stepped into the light of a new day, their spirits unbroken, their bond unshakable. The storm had tested their limits, but it had also forged something stronger, a testament to the enduring power of resilience, love, and the unyielding will to survive. The tranquility they had briefly tasted, the warmth of the cabin, the comforting presence of each other, was shattered in a moment of sheer brutal force. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, with a distant rumble echoing through the frozen valleys, a sound unlike any storm or wind Jake had ever known. His instincts sharpened muscles, tensing with a warning he couldn't ignore. Above them, the snow-laden ridge quivered, the pristine white surface trembling as though disturbed by an unseen beast. Emily, sensing the change in Jake's demeanor, looked up with wide, questioning eyes. Before any words could be exchanged, the mountain roared to life. The avalanche thundered down the slope with devastating power, a roaring wall of snow, ice, and rock barreling toward them with unstoppable momentum. The world was engulfed in blinding white fury, the very air thick with pulverized ice and snow. Jake reacted immediately, shouting warnings to Emily and urging Shadow to move, but the storm's roar swallowed his voice. They were caught in the avalanche's unforgiving embrace. The ground shook violently as snow slammed around them, burying them in an icy tomb. For a terrifying moment, all sensation was muffled, no sound, but the crushing weight pressing in from all sides. No sight but the suffocating white that filled every corner of their existence. Jake's lungs screamed for air. his fingers searching blindly for Emily's hand. She grasped his with a fragile strength, her eyes reflecting the same raw determination that burned in his soul. Near his leg, Shadow trembled, a silent heartbeat amid the chaos. Trapped beneath the avalanche's crushing weight, time lost meaning. Minutes stretched endlessly, breaths, shallow and desperate muscles, screaming against the cold and pressure. The instinct to survive became a singular burning force. Jake fought not only the physical threat, but the creeping tendrils of panic that threatened to choke his spirit. Every movement was a triumph, every breath a victory against the mountain's indifferent fury. Their survival depended on the slimmest margins, a pocket of air here, a shift of snow there. Jake remembered lessons from the years spent in the wild. Conserve energy, control breathing, create space. Using what little mobility he had, he carefully eased into a small hollow, signaling Emily to do the same. Shadow's body pressed close, its warmth, a precious balm against the creeping cold. Outside, the storm raged on the mountain, concealing them beneath its white veil. But the outside world was not blind to their plight. A search party, alerted by concerned neighbors and the earlier signs of the storm's danger, combed the mountain with relentless determination. Their calls and whistles pierced the storm's howl, seeking any sign of life beneath the snow's crushing blanket. Inside the frozen tomb, Jake's voice finally rose above the silence, a ragged call carried through the layers of snow. Emily responded faintly, their voices a fragile tether to hope. The sound of footsteps and shouts grew closer, a lifeline in the abyss. With a final Herculean effort, Jake clawed at the snow, loosening the icy grip, creating a pathway for rescue. The arrival of the rescue team was a moment of overwhelming relief, but also of intense urgency. Digging through layers of snow and ice, they unearthed the trio, extracting them from the mountain's deadly grasp. The cold air hit Jake like a wave, lungs burning as he gasped for breath, but the sheer joy of freedom was immeasurable. Emily, though weak and battered, was alive, and Shadow stirred a flicker of life beneath the frost. Their ordeal was far from over. Emily's injury was severe, a fractured leg that threatened to immobilize her, and the cold had taken a dangerous toll on all of them. Jake's protective instincts surged as he bandaged her wounds with whatever materials they had, his determination unwavering. The mountain had tested them beyond measure, but their will to survive, to protect each other, had forged an unbreakable bond. With help from the rescuers, they began the slow journey back to the cabin, their sanctuary now a beacon of hope rather than just a refuge. Every step was a testament to human resilience and the power of connection. The harsh wilderness, once a foe, now bore witness to a remarkable story of survival and compassion. Back at the cabin, the community rallied. Neighbors brought food, warmth, and medical aid, transforming the humble shelter into a sanctuary of healing. The older woman who had greeted them before became a steadfast caregiver, her knowledge and kindness a vital part of their recovery. Shadow, nestled in a stable crafted with care and ingenuity, began the long road to regaining strength. Jake and Emily found themselves changed not just by the physical wounds, but by the emotional currents that surged beneath the surface. Their partnership, born in adversity, blossomed into a profound connection, a shared understanding that life's greatest challenges often reveal our deepest capacities for love and courage. Together, they envisioned a future that honored their journey and the spirit of the wild that had shaped them. Plans took root for a sanctuary, a place where animals and people alike could find refuge, healing, and the strength to face their own storms. It was a vision of hope born from the ashes of catastrophe and fueled by the enduring human spirit. Jake looked at Shadow, the horse whose fierce will had carried them through the darkest hours. In its eyes, he saw not just survival, but triumph, the embodiment of resilience, and the silent promise that no storm, no matter how fierce, could extinguish the light within. The mountain had tested them to their limits, but it had not broken them. Instead, it had forged something stronger, a testament to the power of unity, compassion, and the relentless pursuit of life. As the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light on the snow-capped peaks, Jake, Emily, and Shadow stepped into a new dawn, a future shaped by their courage and boundless hope. If this story of survival, resilience, and hope has touched your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your support inspires us to bring more powerful stories that celebrate the human spirit and the unbreakable bonds we share. Join us, share your journey, and help keep the light of courage and compassion burning bright. Together, we can face every storm with strength and grace.